Welcome to my cellar for the umpteenth time. I'm going to share a couple of observations. And then we'll get into the good stuff. As you lose hair, and it gets thinner and fewer and thinner and fewer, it's almost impossible to keep your hat or your cap on because there's nothing there to hold it. I wonder, do I have to look for some of that tape they used to put on that toupee? One of the many imponderables. Second, another observation. At my age, with what little meat I have left on my shoulders, I decided today it's not a good idea to get a flu shot and a COVID shot in the same arm. I did. And then I didn't even think it through, and it was in the wrong arm. It's the wrong arm. The shoulder I usually sleep on. Bad idea. Today it feels like somebody hit me in the arm with a ball bat. All right, here we go. Watching these intros is like getting smacked in the face with a brickload of sweet, sweet nostalgia. Great job, Jim. Yeah, I'm from the demented mind of Wampler. I love it. I'm always excited when he says, "Oh, I've got a new one." Samurai Swords was renamed MB Milton board game Shogun. Oh yeah, I played the hell out of Shogun. Oh yeah. It played a lot of it, and I loved the game. For what it was a boatload of fun. You know, no grand tactics or anything like that, but it was fun, and there was some, backstabbing and deal breaking and all the things that make a truly good game good. Okay, in reference to the Kickstarter that I referenced about raising money for a memorial, I was curious how this relates to the last memorial that never happened. Additionally, apparently, they raised like $250K, but only returned $9K to a donor or something. What was that about? Well, I don't know the exact numbers. I think $250K is high. I do know that for a time in the industry there was a scandal about what was going to happen and where did the money go and is the money still there. And then apparently several years later, the majority of the money was accounted for. There was problems with city council, would not give the widow the spot that she wanted it to be in, and would not approve the ornate statuary and what have you. As to where the money ended up, I don't know. You probably want to... I don't know who would know for certain. But yeah, there was a big stink about it for a while. And I was leading the stink for a little while for some accountability that never truly happened. But then I gave other things to think about than things I couldn't do anything about. Okay, next. I've got a monster for your cellar. A failed Draco-Lich ritual hijacked by a gelatinous cube mid-transmutation. Add an L... No. No. You're making a Doom machine and then prescribing that a Doom machine is the only thing that would take it out. I'm sorry, that's not my bag. I'll talk about later with some questions about the wheel. I don't lean toward making intricately complex stuff like that. I don't run a campaign as such. I've just started one again with the people in Okinawa, but that's in its infant stages, and I'm certainly not going to for the level player characters they are and that, I'm certainly not going to give them that horrible thing you wanted to describe. Okay, about a year ago, I took your advice and no longer call cleric spells as spells, but use prayers. An interesting thing happened. Role play and immersion increased. Instead of the player saying, I cast Cure Light Wounds on the fighter, okay, he gets back 6 hit points. Once I said it was a prayer, the player playing the cleric started to get more involved and say things like, I lay my hands on the fighter, meat shield, and pray to my goddess to heal him. Of course, I would say something along the lines, you feel the power of Freya course through you and into the meat shield. It energizes him to get back into the fight. He would gain 6 hit points, or something like that. And after that, other players started to be much more inventive and ingenious with their descriptions of what they were doing. And this made a real difference. So my question would be, what are types of things in the game and you feel just need a little nudge, like an aim chain or a slight alteration to how the rules play, etc., get players to feel really more in touch with the game? Well, that's an awfully broad question. Every group is going to be different. Some groups are going to be fascinated by arcane magic. Others are going to be fascinated by artifacts. Some are going to be fascinated by, we're going to go kill stuff. And that's all good. Okay, I cast aspersions on none of those things. And there's many, many more other incentives to play. One thing I've found that can change game dynamics, and I've found this, and I've spoken of it before. At con games, I make a special point of paying attention to all the players in the group, especially if there's some female players in the group, because it beat me up, I don't care. It seems to me that the guys come in and they're going to play and they got these ideas. And if they don't already know the females at the table, they tend to start giving orders or assigning assignments or whatever. And they also, a lot of players will not listen to what everybody in the group is saying. And if you want to encourage that, the next couple of times they're in a jam and you need some inventive ideas on how to get out of said situation, listen carefully to what everybody around the table is muttering. Because somebody, odds are, more often than not, somebody will have an idea that solves the situation. Somebody will have one. And I would make it a point when I heard a good idea pop out from a lady at the table who was being talked over. And I go, what? Start paying attention when you hear good ideas pop up. And then more people will start listening to what the others are saying. More good ideas will pop up. And the dynamics of who calls the shot might change for the better. Just an idea off the top of my head. I think I may have asked that question about samurai swords. Okay, yeah. That was the game. Thank you. Firstly, great to see you're doing much better compared to 2 episodes ago. Yeah, but either the COVID or the flu kicked my ass a little bit today. It was actually your health, thanks, that made me come up with my question for you. While we all know that Gary and Dave will be remembered as the co-creators of D&D, Wise and Hickman for their work in Dragonlance and so forth, what would you like to be your legacy? Dragon Magazine. I started the greatest gaming magazine. Now, what it became later on, I have no Don't have a hell of a lot of comment on me because I don't know the editorial pressures. But I'll take that. And I made the boulet. And when used correctly, it's one of the nastiest. Anyway, yeah. I tell you, I got the second Gygax Award. Jim Ward got the first. And it's for recognition of what I've done in fantasy gaming. And it means a lot to me. I have not gotten any other awards from any other organizations or whatever. I don't care. I wasn't doing it for awards. I guess what I was doing it for was a message I got from a friend on Facebook thanking me for what I had done and when I had done it, and saying very nice things about Dragon Magazine and saying nice things about me. And I just, I've told my wife before that this happens 2-3 times a month sometimes. And so I cut and I pasted it to her and I showed it to her. That's why I do. That's what I want to be remembered for. The things that made a difference in your life, kept you out of trouble, made you more creative, whatever it did that was a positive for you, that's fine. I know that what I did with Dragon Magazine, all right, I'll confess a deep, dark secret. Way back when I was at TSR doing Dragon, somebody asked me, what's your rush from doing this? And I said, the fact that, and we had taken a survey recently to find out how many people read each copy of the magazine, because it had what was called a big pass-around factor. And I answered that my rush was knowing that every time an issue came out, 21,000 little craniums popped open, and I got to reach in and just massage them a little bit. Just make them want to think. Just a little gentle massage. No indoctrination, no inculcating anything. Just, that's my rush. That was my rush, that I got to do that. That's why I printed fictional pieces, to get out there and think. And sometimes contradictory pieces. And to know I made tens of thousands of people over the years think, bingo. Let's see. By the time you comment it, it'll be October. So in the spirit of the season, what is your favorite scary monster to throw at your characters? Are you using mood music? No, I don't use music and lighting. The writer goes on to say he once tried to run Call of Cthulhu at dim candlelight for spooky atmosphere. And it was so dim that none of us could read the character sheets or the dice, so he turned back on the kitchen lights. No, I don't do that at all. But I recall when I was going to Total Confusion Con out in the Boston area in Mass, there was a gentleman that came, and when the con was in this certain facility that they were in for several years, this one gentleman came and was always given the same room complex, and he brought in theatrical lighting and theatrical sound systems, and they just ran some extraordinary games in there. I wouldn't even try to compete with something like that. And no, I wouldn't feel comfortable trying to, roll a piece of metal to make it thunder. Oh, okay. a comment on my having to go from Android to iPhone. How I feel using my newer Android tablet. Yeah, what the hell does all this do? Okay, dear Tim, Dungeon Ecology versus the Wheel of Blame. Of course not. The Wheel of Blame is made up every... Okay. Trying to bust my chops on this. The Wheel of Blame is a blank slate. And then the players all write down on a sheet of paper, each player writes down on a note card, 2 things. Things. For instance, a severed head and a hydra. Well, I'm going to read that. There we go. At least I can see it now. Severed head and a hydra. This is one of the more difficult ones. Ice and laughter. Okay, the other note's mine. And I've had stuff like bicycle wheel and a turnip. And I don't care. 2 things. Using as few words as possible. 2 things. And from each card, I will concoct an encounter. Now, am I doing this to kill people? Good God, no. I give them so many Red Bulls cures. I give them so many Red Bulls and don't care how many they drink. I don't give them anything else during the course of the wheel that's going to imply, oh, you can't drink that when you do that. No, that's it. That's it, Red Bulls. So I beat them up, but I beat them up. I don't kill them. I beat them up, hopefully, and they get better. Now, Dungeon Ecology was something that I brought up 50 years ago, 45, at least 45 years ago, about thinking out the dungeon that you build. When most of us first started, we followed the charts, and it was like going and visiting the zoo. Each new exhibit had something different to kill, because the charts were only meant to help when you got in a jam, but people were relying on them. So the point was made, how do these things coexist? They would have eaten each other, mostly. The amount of dung would be astonishingly, eye-wateringly immense. And eventually they'd all starve. Those that couldn't get out and nothing could get into them wherever they were would starve because they'd have nothing to eat. So you had to think these things through. That was the beginning of the dungeon ecology movement, or consideration, and we'll say consideration. And when you can embrace that, you can devise much more realistic, I know it's fantasy, but we're all after the verisimilitude. You can do much more realistic designs. And you'll also find, I believe, that in doing this, you'll start making up little sub-stories to have on hand, to be ready, to flesh out someday. Get my caffeine here, excuse me a moment. Red Bull. No, not Red Bull. I don't drink Red Bulls. So let's see what else you want to know. Yeah, dungeon ecology, the wheel has nothing to do with that. Because as each segment of the wheel is completed, they do a little twinkle, twinkle, little star, we know not where the hell they are, and they find themselves at the beginning of the next encounter. But if you think through the dungeon ecology throughout your campaign, your outdoors, what biome is your outdoor in your present delving thing? What biome are you in? What lives there? What's the climate? It becomes easier to make up little mini reasons for things to be someplace. That's what a dungeon ecology is supposed to help you in your designs, make it a little more realistic. Especially the outdoors. The outdoors biome can be realistic as hell and deadly as hell without even putting anything out of the monster manual in it. So, all right, on to the next. If nobody at Lake Geneva played where characters had to train to level up, then why were there training tables in AD&D Dungeon Master's Guide? Just because we played it didn't mean... The Dungeon Master's Guide came out sometime later, when we'd all been playing a while, and finding holes, and improving the system, and today you'd call it patching the program. So, hey, just because we did it. Remember, at the beginning of every hardbound book that I was in any way connected with, even if it was only working for the company that it was made, we said at the beginning, these are not graven in stone. They're guidelines. Now, one of the reasons that we didn't pay a hell of a lot of attention to leveling up and healing and training and all that bullshit was we had stuff going on all over Greyhawk with different characters. So by the time we got to play this guy again, 6 months of game time might have passed. Which means you had 6 months you could say any old bullshit. That's what I've been doing. That's what the character's been doing. We didn't. To my knowledge. I didn't, certainly. Where they included as a tool for the DM to get the PCs to behave at the table, since not following their alignment in class can hinder leveling up. Or is there an easier explanation, such as the DM siphoning money out of the party since leveling is expensive? Well, leveling's only expensive if you have to train. So those two, you got to do both of those. And no, I wouldn't. I don't need something like that to siphon money. The cost of living and inflation is enough to do it. And so many other things. Okay, what happens in the steady state of the invincible overlord? What happens in, stays in. How did you play city campaigns? What advice would you give DMs on running city campaigns? Okay, as I used cities, there were special places to go to find specialist items. Running cities is difficult. It's not to be taken lightly, running a city campaign, because to do it right, you have to map out every single thing the city, county, shire, suburb, HOA that you live in under with. You have to map all that out. Now, in my giant mega city that I built many years ago, I had a city guard, and roughly how many were on at any given time. And then there were there were some areas of the town where the city guard was tougher than others or more obnoxious. thinking out stuff like that, you kind of have to. Or if you do it right in the development of it, they can learn that, oh, the fourth ward is not anywhere to pull off funny stuff in the form of rumors and stuff learned at the tavern. You're going to spend a lot of time in the taverns. And that means you're going to do some brawling. You have to. Whatever chart table inclination you have, if they're going to spend a lot of time in town, they're going to get involved in local shenanigans. So, that's about all I can say on that. It's tough. You got to have everything. You got to have guilds, and again, depending upon your level of civilization. But if you're doing a medieval like it all started out, you've got to allow for all these things. You don't have to develop them until you need to, but you have to allow for them. The Masons Guild, the Weavers Guild, the Thieves Guild. They may not call themselves that, but it's the local mob or whatever. If you have all that framework in place, then when you let your characters loose in it, like rats in a maze to go off and find what they can, you've got stuff handy to answer questions with. And those questions answered become the form that your campaign takes and some of the structure. All right. In many early D&D modules, there would be rumors to be given to the players, but some of these rumors would occasionally be false. What's your take on giving false rumors to the players? Are false rumors supposed to keep players on their toes, to encourage critical thinking? Or is it just cruel to give them to players just a waste of time? Does it make for a fun gotcha moment between players and the DM, similar to the fun the DM can play on the mapper by putting tricks? You're describing a bunch of things that I wouldn't do, because that's not why we're there it's not why we're there. We're there to have a good time, enjoy each other's companionship, and jointly endeavor to solve the puzzles given to us. To send them off on a wild goose chase, maliciously, no. Every rumor they pick up doesn't have to be exactly true or completely true, or it could just be something mutated from something somebody heard. But to give them deliberate red herrings, I wouldn't do that. We waste game time. And, bad shit might happen. Totally unexpected. Totally unexpected. Something would be minor at any other time. I feel pretty bad if a false rumor about something or other being in the temple of the serpent, and it wasn't true, but they all ran off down there to do it anyway, and a couple of them got croaked. I'd feel pretty bad about that. I imagine they wouldn't be very happy either. I'm pretty sure they wouldn't be very happy either. So you can, if you want to use false rumors, I would, if I were to find myself to use them, if they all haired off after in pursuit of a false rumor, I'd let them get a real rumor when they got there. Something else to do, but this one will pay off. Or if they go off on a false rumor, they could still have a little adventure. Come across a band of orcs that are, being bad, and get a few experience points that way, or get hired by the local hamlet to wipe out a nest of bandits, get some more experience, get to loot the bandits, get paid by the people. If it's the ultimate goal of the campaign, well, then false rumors are... Again, it's really hard to give you a straight answer on this, because it depends on the scope of your campaign, what your ultimate goal is, who's the ultimate bad evil, big bad evil guy. No, I wouldn't waste very much of my players' time on a false rumor if there wasn't an unexpected jackpot on the end. And jackpot meaning something decent, something good. Doesn't have to be extravagant. Okay, and the last one here I see, come back to Android, we miss you. Well, yeah, no, no, I'm committed. I've learned how to do enough things now that I can do it. I still don't do a lot of things like my wife does online, on her phone. I mean, buy stuff and no, I don't do that. And if I'm sinking out of the picture, it's because I'm using a chair that's much more comfortable, but it has a tendency to let out little. The piston's not very good. So I can't think of anything else right offhand. I hear there might be a con that's gonna have a lot of cosplay, but that's okay. I'm a little old for dressing up. But there's gonna be a con over across the river in Covington, so I'm gonna check that out. Maybe Jim and Al could get that a local con. That's cool. That's cool. Maybe we can help them promote it and make it a bigger deal. Have to see. Depends on if they want help. So many people don't. Oh well. Have a good time. Be nice to each other. The weather here is really, really weird. Here we are in October and it's still in the high 80s rather. Whew. And until the next time, play hard, have fun. Dodada Gobi. Hello, and welcome to my cellar.
He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs. Still quite a feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Last man around when them rates went down. Calling Gary in that Lake Geneva town. Hey Gary, it's an awful mess. Let me edit, we'll have success. D&D and Dragon Magazine. He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs, but he's still quite a feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Magic missile, it's a mortar shell. Make it hit in the first level spell. Brought psionics to the game to attack that wizard's brain. ESR and fantasy, collection of micro armory. Titan with tramp under a tree, high as could be. He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs, but he's still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Curmudgeon.